I'm Jim Csek with KelownaNow, and with me,
I'm Renee Merrifield. I am a recovering politician and a community leader here to try and make sense of the issues of politics.
we got lots to talk about. We even got a new intro.
I really liked it, except they used my bun head first. I don't think you should have used bun head first.
Lots to talk about, both sides of the border, beyond the cabinet, or what's in the cabinet, really.
What's in the cabinet?
What's in the cabinet? Where do you want to start, U.S. or Canada?
Well, you know what? I think let's start with BC, because that was a big announcement yesterday. I mean, we've kind of seen the trickle of Trump's cabinet over the course of the last week, but yesterday was, I think I was quoting to you from Vaughn Palmer, and I loved his headline this morning. Hit the ground running? No, the BC NDP is stumbling out of the starting gate. And I thought you couldn't have more appropriately put it.
John Rustad had some negative things to say as well. I think we were talking about it too, like a really big cabinet, lots of appointments, and I guess what Rustad was saying is a lot of costs.
Oh, it's massive amounts of cost. EB basically gave out of 27, he's got a 27-member cabinet. 23 of those are actual ministers, 4 ministers of state, which are like junior cabinet ministers, and then he's got 14 parliamentary secretaries, and then these 6 other jobs, which are like caucus whip and deputy whip and speaker and assistant speaker. You literally he gave every single person in his caucus a raise basically on the taxpayer dollar.
Well, I guess there's a lot of dollars going to go around, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Everybody's a winner except for the taxpayer.
Yeah, the taxpayer is a loser in EB's cabinet. Absolutely. Yeah. And if he was doing something, like if he was really like shaking things up and doing something that was radical or changing things that to really affect the BC taxpayer positively, then I could kind of say, okay, I see what he's trying to do here. But this was like the most lackluster, cabinet post that I could ever imagine. He's got George Chow still in at Citizen Services. That, and George, if you ever watched him in the House or on Hansard, he literally reads. He does not say anything like, authentically. He literally, his staff will hand him something to read and he will read off of a script. What is he doing in citizen services? We've got FOI issues. We've got the privacy commissioner that came out with a scathing report at the end of last year, or at the beginning of this year. We've got so many issues right now. George Chow is not going to be a mover and shaker in that particular ministry. That's for sure.
The one that surprised me too was Adrian Dix with the health issues that still continue with the closures. Merritt now over 40, or not Merritt, sorry, Oliver now over 40 closures.
But Merritt's not far behind. I mean, they're probably in the 20s.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, and we're gonna do a story on it. And it's and he won't do an interview, and he gets moved into energy. Out of the health ministry.
Well, I mean, he needed to go. The health, healthcare in Canada is bad, but healthcare in BC is the worst. And when you've been losing ground steadily over the course of 7 years, something had to change there. Putting Josie Osborne, I mean, many in the mining industry would say that she single-handedly destroyed mining with the energy mines, folio. We also have, her that, she brought in and accelerated the time frame to EVs. And I know you and I differ a little bit on the EV aspect, but we don't have the infrastructure. Right now, I'm working on a project out in Merritt, and, BC Hydro is literally does not have enough power to put, how to get enough power out there. So our infrastructure just isn't where we need it to be. And the new car dealers are screaming, saying this is it's too much too soon. That's all under, Josie Osborne. So then to put her in health, to say, she's going to somehow solve these healthcare issues with zero background in health, I think is a real concern.
They're going to do a big about face in the U.S. on EV mandates. So you can say those are going to get scrapped, as well as the EV credits in the U.S. And they're going to let EVs stand on their own, which they should.
I think they should. I mean, it should be market driven, and I think that the innovation inside of the market is going to continue. I think that the car makers have signaled that. We've seen a lot of technology that's come on. We just have to get it to the point where it becomes more affordable and infrastructure has an opportunity to catch up. And I think it's a mistake to say it's going to be electricity only. I think that we have yet to see some of the more innovative technologies that will come out, whether it's hydrogen or whether it's other forms of self-driving cars that will take our dependence on all of us owning our own vehicle to a different place.
In this cabinet, anything that stands out as a good, like that you see in there?
Yes.
Just okay.
I came prepared. I came prepared to talk about two amazing things. Yes. One amazing thing is that I think that Eby really screwed up on the last cabinet shuffle that he did was he put Lana Popham back into agriculture. She is a diehard, farmer. She understands the industry. She understands their issues. She understands, and nobody is loved more in the agricultural industry than Lana Popham. So I think that that's a great move to put her back into that, out of tourism. Because that was a weird move. Everyone was kind of scratching their head. And really, it was very demoralizing for Lana, I believe. She had done such a great job on that agricultural file. And then you saw, Pam Alexis stumble from when she got that post on. So I think that's a really exciting one. And the other one that I will talk about is Ann Kang. She's back into post-secondary education. That is her heartbeat. It's where she has a true love, and they are going to need help. Our post-secondary, with the immigration numbers coming down, I heard recently that only 30% of the institutions are going to have be in the black on their budgets this year. That's scary. And so we need some real focus. We need some real momentum, and we need someone that can come in and help that ministry along. So my hope is that Anne will have that, and that she'll have a voice around the cabinet table and be listened to, because right now we're really lagging behind, and there's no connection between labor and our labor market and our post-secondary right now. That's a real weakness, I think, within the cabinet postings. And that I would say is a negative, is that Jennifer Whiteside was put into that post in the labor file. She's a diehard unionist. That's where she's going to focus. She's not going to focus on what's really good for our economy and for moving British Columbia forward. I got a text message yesterday in real time as this was being posted and as they were being announced. And literally, it was like, if you hear the dollars being sucked out of BC, and our economy, it's because of these cabinet positions. Nothing in here signals that BC is open for business. Nothing in here signals a different path forward. Nothing in here signals a departure from some of the really costly items to our economy, like Clean BC. So I think it's going to be more of the same.
The one that surprises me the most is forestry was talked about. We did a ton of stories on forestry, and Bruce Ralston was retiring, so we thought maybe, and I know if John Rust had one, that was one of their big focuses, and same as Kevin Falcon was on forestry, which affects us greatly, is in the wildfire segment as well. And then to name Ravi Parmar.
Ravi Parmar is a pit bull. He is someone that is a loyalist to the NDP. All he's ever known is politics. He's been basically groomed since he was a teenager to be, heir apparent to John Horgan, and definitely has always worked in government. So there is nothing that he's going to do outside of Eby. But that's the other thing. Eby has signaled with this cabinet that he does not want change. He does not want people standing up to him. He's going to centralize control back with him, which he did before with all of his advisors and all of his councils that weigh in. And these will be nothing more than yes people.
It's a different kind of like message, because right after he kind of won the election, he said he has a reflective, and he's heard British Columbians, but then he seems to have gone right back to where he was.
And talk is cheap. Action is everything. This is Eby will say lots of things, but what he does speaks volumes more than what he'll say to the public. And that was something that Vaughn Palmer brought out in his article this morning, was that he's like, after we've had all this pomp and ceremony and all of this diatribe about how he's going to change things and how this is going to be a kitchen counter sort of cabinet, This was like exactly the opposite of that, and this is not signaling that anything is going to change. And I would say don't listen to what EB says, because what he's saying is not true. What he's doing is basically more of the same.
Actions speak louder than words.
Most definitely. And that brings us to the American cabinet, where if you want to shake things up, you do exactly what Trump is doing, which is every single name that he has been bringing forward has been wrought with controversy.
It's like watching the NFL draft, right? People are glued to their seats waiting for the next name drop, right?
Absolutely.
I've never seen so much attention on the cabinet, right? I can't remember in all my years.
Never
seeing,
before.
like who's the next name, and a lot of those names are very controversial, and it's weird. RFK, former Democrat, ran for the Democratic presidency, and also one of the biggest names in the Democratic Party, right, with the Kennedy name.
Kennedy.
And then they're I guess attacking because he's going to be the head of health, and there was a former CDC director that came on and said that he's a really good pick. He said, why wouldn't you want somebody questioning what we're doing?
Totally. Yeah. And I think, I had a conversation just this week, and I know this is anecdotal, but, basically we've lost nuance in conversation. We've lost the ability to question and to have, conversation around such issues. And, we were just talking about, the different, messages that are going out saying, if you voted for Trump, don't come to Christmas dinner. It's like, you know what? We just have to dial the whole, political, disparate positions down and really start talking and having those conversations. And in a science-based field like health, you want someone who's going to question. You want someone who's going to do something different, because what's working for the Americans, I mean, their system is the only system that's worse than ours. In all of the socialized healthcare systems, the U.S. ranks 11th and Canada's 10th. So they definitely need a strong voice in that. And I think that someone who does have both of those voices is a positive.
One of the things that CDC director said, if you compare what happened in the United States with COVID versus Taiwan, over 1 million deaths in the United States and 10,000 in Taiwan, he said you just can look at the state of where American health is. He said the obesity crisis and all those things. He said we lost so many people because of our kind of our baseline health is horrible.
Yes, and the other thing that is Robert Kennedy is super strong at is looking at food and food sources. He was one of the lawyers that went after Monsanto and some of the GMOs. And anyone who has been to Europe will know that when you eat food there, whether it's pasta or bread or cheese, or you can eat to your heart's content and feel satisfied and satiated, but not actually ever gain weight. Whereas in the US and in Canada, we've done things to our food and our food production that I think has been really damaging. So I think he's going to take a look way farther up the chain into prevention.
I mean, he's in pretty good shape for an old guy.
Right? Oh my chicken. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, those, if you haven't seen them yet, take a look at some of the ads that are out there, talking about the former heads of the CDC and the new head of health in the US, because I mean, he walks the talk, and he lives by what he believes, and I think that's very evident. And he is old. I mean, not old. Sorry, I shouldn't say.
I think,
but 74, 75. Okay. So he's in phenomenal shape for that.
Yeah, he looks like he's like a ripped 20-year-old.
Yeah.
There's that iconic photo right now out there floating around. I think Eric Trump said it's his most viral post ever. It's the cool kids on the plane chowing down on McDonald's and Coca-Cola, right? And there's Bobby there with he's got a pretty pained looking expression on his face there. But
totally.
The other big thing out there that's happening is it seems to be like a lot of the NFL celebrations, a lot of UFC celebrations. They're all doing the Trump dance thing. And it's really
going viral for a different reason.
I think a lot of Americans are now saying that they can say they actually voted for Trump, right? And obviously a lot did, right?
A lot did.
The popular vote, right?
A lot did, and a lot were maybe doing it, plugging their nose, but knowing that something had to change. Yeah. And if I bring it back around to Canada, the American people really telegraphed a very, very serious message that they wanted something different, that life was not going well for them. And it's worse in Canada.
Yeah, being in government The one that I think a lot of countries are even asking, former UK prime ministers, like, when do we get a Doge? When do we get a Department of Government Efficiency? And we're hearing that. I hear this even at the local level. When do we get a Department of Government Efficiency here in Canada, here in Kelowna, here in BC?
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Like of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy doing that role?
Absolutely, we should have that. And there were in past seasons when Gordon Campbell took over, he had the Department of Red Tape Reduction, Ministry of Red Tape Reduction, and basically that entire ministry. Their goal and focus was to literally, get rid of bureaucracy and get rid of inefficiency. I still remember when I had a family member that took over a government department in another province, and they said, I don't even have job descriptions for most of these people. I don't know what they're actually doing, within his department. And so he just, every time someone left, he didn't replace them, and he ended up from 300 going down to 30 people and still having the same output. Yeah. I think that we would discover similar things.
Well, Elon did that with Twitter, right? He cut 80% of the staff, and they seem to be doing more than what they used to.
And one of the easiest ways is to require everyone to come back to work and be in an office and to actually understand what they're doing.
There's some people in the U.S., they say in the federal government, that haven't been to work for 3 years that actually hold other jobs.
Oh yeah. And there's all these, like, I don't know if you've looked at the technology, but there's like these, like, because now you can install devices to look at where their mouse is going and what they're clicking on, etc. Well, there's also actual apparatuses that you can buy to make sure that your mouse is moving and that things are.
You could probably pay somebody like very little in a different country, right, to run your computer for you, right?
So true, which is scary. I mean, and if we had a Department of Government Efficiency here in BC, the first thing that they would say is, do not give every single caucus member an additional pay increase with a job that's not real. You look at some of these jobs, like Rick Glumac, what has he done for us with trade? Like, absolutely nothing. And some of the commentators on Twitter yesterday were saying exactly that basically, like, you gave him another post, but he hasn't done anything to date. So why would you do that all over again? Doesn't make any sense.
The Auditor General is supposed to fill that role, like the BC Auditor General, the Canada, but they seem to be stymied with red tape all the time, and they seem to be very hard to get around. Some of the governments won't even give them the paperwork, and it just seems to be really hard to get done. Having an outside body look at it that has like the presidential, like, A-OK, like you can look at everything, seems like a dream come true for the taxpayer.
And it should be done more. We should have more accountability, and I hope that even in BC and in the next Canadian election, that we take that really seriously. We're starting to see the headlines over and over and over again federally about the wasted amounts of money. We now have a new minister that is in charge of the infrastructure projects in BC because every single one of them is over budget and not on schedule. You can't run anything like that, never mind on taxpayer dollars. So we as the people need to, like, really stand up and shake things up.
Any surprises on the south of the border for you from the picks that are coming out so far?
Well, just the number of his picks that he actually have as with Democratic backgrounds. I think 3 of them actually were either Democratic congresspeople or
Tulsi Gabbard is really. I would have thought that they would have really liked the Democrats would have liked Tulsi Gabbard, but holy cow!
I know.
They are definitely. That's like, it seems like she's the devil or whatever, and. A Russian agent and all those things, and I'm just not sure where they get all that from, but it seems odd. Like, Tulsi Gabbard, very intelligent, very powerful lady. Very
much so. And the one thing I would say about his cabinet is that he's choosing a diverse cabinet. Everyone from these that have huge Democratic backgrounds and that I think are very strong candidates to really far right. A cabinet. The one that I just don't get at all is Mike Gates. Like, why you would take Matt Gates, sorry. Why you would take him on with all of his controversy.
Lots of baggage, for sure.
Just,
lots of baggage.
It just doesn't make sense. There's enough people out there that you don't really need that. So.
I'd say that might be the one that doesn't get confirmed for sure. But I mean, Obviously, Matt Gaetz stood by him the whole time, probably one of the loudest loyalists for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why. But yeah, he's going to be a tough one to get confirmed.
Totally.
For sure.
I will give Trump huge props. Susie Wiles has done 2 successful campaigns for Trump, and to put her in as chief of staff is really, really positive. Right. And anyone who is saying that he doesn't like strong women,
his new
that's
press
a pretty
secretary too, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty big pushback on that. She's the first woman to actually hold the title of chief of staff. So big props to her and to all of her success, and definitely to Trump for recognizing that and for putting her in the position that she's in.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. One of the things that hopefully we can get to this transition of power before they start World War III. With what happened just a couple of days ago, it seems like they might want to try to light the house on fire before they leave. With giving this is starting to play out right now, giving Ukraine the ability to launch missiles into Russia, and they've done it already. And then there's been a response, a verbal response from Lavrov this morning at the APEC meeting.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary times, and it's scary for the world. These are not small weapons. These are not small nations. With these are nuclear charged nations, and the last thing we want is to play fast and loose with that. And I don't know if it's bravado or if it's they're trying to light the house on fire and make it more difficult for Trump. But from everything that Trump was signaling, and from even what was being signaled with Zelensky and Putin, it was like, okay, yeah, we're ready to get to the table now.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, just like light a match, right, and just throw it into the. It without being too, but it seems like this talk about the elitist Democrats are the party of war seems to be more true than not, right? Well, it really, I hope Trump holds true and ends these wars.
I do too, for all of our sake.
This for our children's sake.
Absolutely. This is not just about the U.S. and Russia. This is not just about the Ukraine and Russia. This is not just about this is really about all of us, and we need to take this really seriously and hope that we can bring about a peaceful end to all of this.
Yeah, because if you listen to some of the like our own prime minister talking about climate change as being more important than even your rent and your groceries, and that starting a nuclear war would not help climate change.
No, not even a little bit. But speaking of our prime minister, 2 big blunders this last week. If you have not watched the 7-minute video, you can put it on double time and watch it in 3.5 minutes. But what a horrific blame game. I was watching listening to the Vashi Capello show yesterday, and it was hilarious to hear Tom Mulcair basically thrashing the prime minister on that video. But it was just the most ridiculous thing ever. It was everyone else's fault but his. Yeah. And villainizing, and again that real partisan politics and divisiveness, and it was reminiscent of horrible times in our past. So honestly, that was just a huge blunder. And then his performance on the environmental front this last week has just been brutal. If you look at any polling right now, the environment is like at the bottom of the list. Everyone is most concerned about affordability, about food security, about the economy. The environment is so low right now because people are not making ends meet. So 2 big blunders in my mind, from the prime minister this last week that just missed the mark and prove again he's just not listening to the Canadian people.
Danielle Smith has booked her ticket to Washington to be there for inauguration and probably wants to get in line for some pipelines.
Absolutely. You know what? And she's made it clear she's not gonna rely on the prime minister for trade. She is going herself, and she's gonna make sure that the Albertan people are taken care of in what they need, and that their prosperity is not dependent on what the prime minister is doing right now. Good on her.
And it's not just Alberta that she looks after, because Alberta gives the most money to the rest of Canada, right? So she's looking after most of Canada, though, too, right? So
most definitely.
She's a very strong, I mean, if we talk about how we want to support female leaders, she's probably one of the strongest female leaders in Canada right now.
I think she's one of the, I'm going to go farther than that. I think she is one of the strongest female leaders that we've ever seen. Yeah. She is, you know, I was not a huge Danielle Smith fan when she first, just the whole tumult with Wild Rose Party, etc., and everything that happened there. But honestly, she is articulate, she is smart, she is thoughtful, she is principled, she is bold, and she is making big moves. You know, even the whole decoupling of the healthcare system from the political system in Alberta, with the 4 crown corporations dividing up healthcare, with her choice of chief of staff, with
hiring Stephen Harper.
Hiring Stephen Harper. Yeah, I mean, he does live in Calgary, so it makes sense.
But firing that other guy and saying, you're done.
Yeah, you're done. But honestly, she's done some remarkable things and shown real true leadership. And I mean, her numbers are showing that. They're showing that you know, Albertans really believe that she's taking care of them. Yeah. And she's doing what's right for them.
Because they talked a lot about how, you know, like she was being challenged in her leadership, and then a 91% approval rating shows how strong she is. And I think, you know, like hopefully her and Tulsi meet. They probably could be a real like power team together, you know, like helping Canada and the United States both prosper, because I believe the United States is likely going into a golden age, especially with their energy policies that they're going to do. Because if we drive down the cost of energy, you can bring up the prosperity for most people. Yeah. And I think we need that same thing here, but we have something standing in the way that Danielle Smith fights every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I love what you just did there. And you know, many don't understand that the cost of energy is in direct correlation to your economy and to the prosperity of all of your people. Yeah. And it's one of the reasons that you see, you know, some of the other world leaders saying, no, we need LNG, we need oil. Like, we're not at the stage where we can afford other more costly you know, infrastructure pieces before we get to that place. And it's one of the reasons that I don't think we've hit the peak oil years, and you know, because our population is growing. So even as we you know, really work on renewables and see those increase, we're going to still see an oil and gas dependency on, you know, from a number of emerging countries that don't have the same prosperity levels.
I mean, you just have to look at some of the countries that have some of the higher standards of living, like Norway. They really utilize their oil and gas, right? Even though they might be very progressive on some of the other issues, but they utilize that oil and gas.
100%. Right? You look at all of the countries, even the ones that are doing the best on renewables, they did it on the back of oil and gas.
Yeah. Norway,
you know,
that'd be the one.
Norway is a great example of how they introduced and really got a tremendous amount of prosperity to their people. Another example is California. Yeah. You do not need to, I mean, California, we all tout California, and even Josie Osborne, she and I in debate one day, you know, went head to head on California. And it's like, there is no mistake. You can look out, you know, across the sea, you know, the ocean, and literally see all of the oil rigs that are out there, and know that is what California did. They got wealthy on oil and gas, and then they really went to a green front and have worked really hard on the renewables, largely because their electricity. They've had such an issue with their growing population and electricity needs. So, you know, it's no mistake what, you know, how this is done. But for us to really ideologically try and decouple that cost of energy from you know, an environmental standpoint, and understand how we can reach prosperity through a green economy that just has not been seen yet is a mystery.
In one of the world's richest resource nations in the world, we don't want to utilize any of those resources. I mean, I think if the United States could have Canada, they'd say, like, thanks, right? You can go somewhere else. But
well, and I mean, Trump with his big tap, you know, we're not just a resource, you know, in oil and gas or in you know, in minerals. We also have water. Yeah. And, you know, Canada is incredibly rich. And if we don't think that we need to be defending ourselves or making sure that we can defend ourselves, we got another thing coming.
Well, we're trying to keep this to around 30 minutes. We're a little bit over, but anything you want to add before we end today?
No, just that natural resources are a trump card.
There you go. I like that. Yeah.
Unintended.
So the first 100 days when he gets into office, be interesting to see, because he said that first 100 days is going to be, there's going to be so many things that come down in that first 100 days. Hopefully Canada figures into that equation somewhere. And Daniel Smith is there playing the trump card for us, right?
Yeah, let's hope so, because it would be very different than Eby, who said that we could see and feel the results of his first 100 days, and we haven't done anything, and haven't seen or felt anything but demise over the last 2 years. So I'm very disappointed here locally, and it will be very interesting to see how Trump does it differently in the U.S.
And we could use a Department of Government Efficiency up here in Canada. So Elon, if you're not too busy, I'm sure there's a lot of countries
Jim, you could do it.
I could do it, yeah. Anyway, we thank you for watching Kelowna Now.